What's going on, villains? JM here. Welcome to Midweek Mashup, a time where we get to look at all things Aston Villa as we prepare for a midweek game or even just a look ahead to the weekend. I just want to say, as always, like, comment and subscribe to the channel. I'm really enjoying all the interaction that I'm getting. I just want to give a massive shout out to everybody that subscribed so far. We've reached the 300 subscriber mark and I'm so pleased with that, and hopefully we can continue to build. So continue to share this with people. Tell them that there's a great podcast going on about Aston Villa, and just get involved as per always. Like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into it. So today, obviously, we're preparing for tomorrow's game against Feyenoord in the UEFA Europa League. We're going back to Rotterdam, the site where we won it all, the site where we sat on top of the world, obviously, because Europe football is the best. The site in 1982 where we conquered Europe and became champions of Europe. We're going back to the site to face Feyenoord, and I'm so excited for the game. After the last two wins that we've had, we're in good stead to continue to build as we prepare for the next international break. And how great would it be, guys, if we just end up being on a slight unbeaten run with the next two wins in the next two games against Feyenoord and Burnley respectively, so that we can go into the international break on a bit of a high and just build in that time off. We're going to look at some things today. I've got to look, we're going to look at a podcast, another Villa podcast. I feel like there were some great comments made by John Townley and Dan Rollinson in regards to one of our players. We'll get into that a little bit later. So let's just look at where we are at in terms of tomorrow, in terms of players and the injuries that we may have. So at the minute, obviously, Mings is out. He picked up a knock on the weekend, so he's out, and they're expecting that he's going to be out until after the international break. Tielemans and Nana are still out. Garcia, for some reason, is now back on the injury list, but we will have to see about that. Barkley's not able to play tomorrow. He's not in the Europe squad. And also Jadon Sancho, it's turned out that he hasn't travelled to the Netherlands because of an illness. So that's where we are. But we're in good stead. You know, we are missing a few players, but the players that have been playing over the last few weeks have stepped up, and I think that we are going into the game tomorrow with a strong squad, ready on a high to continue to win in this manner. So before I go into the clip of the podcast that I want to show you surrounding the Claret and Blue Card podcast, and I'll put the link to the full video in the description for you to check it out. I think you should check it out. It's a great conversation between the two lads. But let's have a look at what the manager of Feyenoord had to say about one of our guys, Ollie Watkins. And obviously the manager of Feyenoord is Robin van Persie. So this is coming from a legend in the game, a top goal scorer, top finisher, one of the best that we've seen in the Premier League and in the world, really, at his prime. So let's see what he had to say about Ollie Watkins. So he said, he runs the way he moves. He's very direct and has a really good feel for space. He's fast, technical, and in the box is where his qualities lie. We had a meeting about Villa today. He was in it a lot. And I think that says a lot about how much esteem Ollie Watkins is held in. You know, obviously, a lot of these managers, the players, are media trained, so they're not going to be out here spitting rubbish on his name. However, he wouldn't say the things that he's saying about Ollie Watkins if there wasn't a level of respect for him. I think he's quite direct and clear with what he's saying, and I think these elements that he speaks about in regards to Ollie Watkins are some of the things that we see as Villa fans that are true. You know, he is quite quick. You know, he has a lot of technical ability, and he always knows how to find space. The difficulty is, and what I think is quite glaring from what RVP has said, is that he hasn't mentioned his finishing. And Ollie, as we know, isn't the greatest finisher. He has to get quite a few chances to score. But when he's at his lethal best, you know, he is a goal scorer that can contend with some of the top goal scorers in Europe, I believe. You know, when I harken back to that goal against the Netherlands, funnily enough, in the Euros, where it was just one chance, one goal. And that's what we're hoping. We're hoping that Ollie Watkins can do the things that RVP showed as some of his strengths. Find space, move quickly, find space in the box. But then also, can Ollie Watkins now have his shooting boots on? Because if Ollie Watkins has his shooting boots on, I do believe that we can be an unstoppable force, not just in Europe, but domestically as well. So let's hope for Ollie after the finish on Sunday, which I think was actually sublime. Lots of technical ability there. I think if he continues in that vein, we are in a very good place. Let's get to the excerpt from the Claret and Blue podcast that I want us to look at, and I think it's a very pivotal part of the conversation that they have, that John Townley and Dan Rollinson have. Let me know what your thoughts are on what they say. I'll give my thoughts after this as well, but let me know your thoughts on what they say, and we can go from there.
And there's two questions in one here. First of all, from Lee. Can we have a review of Gessand? Looks to be the most trusted of the new signings so far. Still obviously learning, but there's a clear plan for him because he's starting more often than not. My perspective is he looks bright when he's tricking people and making them fall over themselves. However, you can't be doing that 2 metres in front of Matty Cash. Please get up the field. He's in all the wrong positions to maximise his attributes. And from Gus, I think Gessand has potential to be a real handful. Once he gets used to the pace over here and develops confidence, he has the physique to really scare opponents. Yeah. And I think those two are a nice summary for me, that there's absolutely signs there and things to be positive about that, you know, again, we speak about, and I think there might be a question about the fickle nature of football fans, and specifically for this podcast, Villa fans, that it was only maybe 2 games ago, it was Gessand's awful. He's one of the worst players I've seen play for us in our comments and on our mailbag, and I thought that was too far the other way. I'm not suggesting he's a world beater, but he's better than awful.
It's interesting how Gessand is playing over Marlon, over Sancho, over Harvey Elliott, as you say, they're done. Because usually when players come in, apart from Pau Torres, it's rare that a player gets
Rodgers
an extended run of game. Rodgers, but mainly because of Ramsey's injury. Yeah. Maybe Onana would have been the other player who kind of started straight away at the start of last season. Yeah. But at the same time, Onana scored in each of Villa's 3 away games. Gessand hasn't kind of set the world alight. Yeah. But that's interesting because usually when that happens, Emery will take them in and out and he'll, shuffle it around. But he's just stuck with him, which I like. So for that reason, that's making me more excited, knowing that Emery is clearly seeing something there.
So I think it's quite interesting, some of the things they bring up. I think Dan was really quite honest about the fact that we as Villa fans have probably exercised some impatience when it comes to Gessand and his start. And I am one of the ones that even just a week ago in the Holt End was quite critical of Gessand, mainly because I felt like there was not much of a end product or not much quality when he got into the final third. However, upon reflection, when I did watch the game back and I did think about, reflect on that game, he was giving us a lot of impetus going forward, or the most impetus going forward, especially on the right, which is an area that we struggled with for so long. So in some respects, I've had to eat crow a little bit when it comes to Gessand because, he has just arrived in England. He's coming from a league that is a lot slower, a league that isn't as fast-paced and not playing at the same level. And in some way, I've probably expected him to hit the ground running, which on my match review the other day, I did say that it was probably a bit far-fetched and a bit unfair to have that expectation of him. And we're starting to see now him get used to the system, him developing or understanding his role in the team. And from that, we're starting to see glimpses of good things. And I think we have some great things to expect from him. He offers something going forward. We're seeing that. One of the person that gave the question did say that, him doing it right in front of Matty Cash doesn't make any sense. So we've seen that a few times, but again, growing pains. But one thing I will say is, our right-hand side has probably looked the most sure it has defensively for the first time in a few years. When I think about the right-hand side, even going back to Gerrard's days, when we had Bertrand Traore on the right, and then we've had Leon Bailey and Moussa Diaby. And the issue that we had, and I was able to see even back then, is that Matty Cash, however we might see him, was often left alone on the island, because the person, whoever was playing on the right-hand side, unless it was McGinn, who, again, we know that that's not his best position, was left on his own on an island sometime with no one willing to track back. And what we've seen from Gessand, and obviously the instruction and expectation from Emery, is that he does track back. And I believe that this is good stuff. This is brilliant stuff. And it could only get better. They're creating a relationship. You know, imagine if they, and this is far-fetched, I'm going quite a few years back, but imagine if they develop a relationship a bit like Gary Neville and David Beckham, where they knew exactly where each other was going to be. They knew how to defend together, knew how to attack together. And if we can develop that kind of understanding on the right-hand side, which has been a sore point for us attacking-wise and even defensively for the last few years, if that is shored up, then how does that release us in the other areas of the park where a lot more of our talismanic players are, more expressive, creative players are? I just think there's actually something good that's potentially budding. So again, and you know, I think John said it as well, you know, the fact that he's been given chance after chance by Emery is actually a show of confidence. And for some of us, we were getting frustrated, like, why is Gessand starting, man? Why is Gessand starting? There's other people that can start. But the fact that Emery is showing this confidence in him, and I'm saying this, you know, he might not even start tomorrow against Feyenoord, but it seems as though that's where Emery's going to go. Maybe we need to trust our guy, you know. We said it all last year and the year before. In Unai we trust. You know, he's transformed the club. So a period of 5 games where I've said over and over again, it's just pre-season in theory. You know, we maybe we should have had a little bit more patience, and I've had to hold my hand up. I've had to say, you know what, maybe I was wrong about this, and trust those that are the professionals, trust those that make the decisions. I still don't agree with everything, but if we win tomorrow, if we win against Burnley on the weekend, that's 4 wins on the bounce. It's a 4-win winning streak, and I think that bodes us well going into that 3-game tough streak with City, Liverpool and Spurs with confidence. So yeah, it's good. What I will say again, check out the full video. It's about 45 minutes. Great insight. You know, they're answering some of the fans' questions, and you get to hear different perspectives as well. So yeah, guys, Midweek Mashup, that's it. Look, I want to say thank you again for everyone that has subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Continue to comment. Let me know your thoughts. It helps the algorithm. It helps me understand and hear from my Villa fans, my fellow Villa fans. And, you know, maybe one day I can do a Q&A with some of you guys as well. Listen, we're going to Feyenoord tomorrow. I'm excited for the game. I'm expecting a win. We can do this. And as always, guys, up the Villa. Peace.